The woman with the empty plate. It was late October. The wind carried that cold feeling that slips right through your jacket and settles into your bones. I had just finished work. Another long day. Another excuse to grab fast food and rush home. Then I saw her. She sat quietly outside a tiny church, wearing an old blue sweater with tiny holes near the sleeves. Her silver hair danced in the wind. Her shoes looked older than I was. People walked past her without slowing down. Nobody stopped. Nobody smiled. Nobody even looked. I almost kept walking too. Then our eyes met. She smiled. Not the smile of someone asking for money. The smile of someone trying to make me feel better. It confused me. I walked over. "Ma'am?" I asked gently. "Are you okay?" She laughed softly. "Oh, sweetheart, I'm still breathing. I've had worse days." Then she lifted something into her lap. An empty ceramic plate, spotless, not a crumb, not a single grain of rice. I assumed she was hungry. So I reached for my wallet. She touched my hand. "No," she whispered. "I don't need money. I just need a little more time." Those words stayed with me. I sat beside her. The cold concrete didn't matter anymore. She looked across the street at a small homeless shelter. Every few minutes, someone walked inside. Every few minutes, someone walked out, holding a warm meal. Then she smiled again. "Good," she whispered. "Everyone ate today." Something didn't make sense. "If everyone ate," I asked, "what about you?" She looked down at the empty plate. "Oh, I already had dinner." But her stomach growled loud enough for both of us to hear. She wasn't fooling anyone, not me, not even herself. The secret she hid for years. The next morning, I couldn't stop thinking about her, so I went back. Same church, same bench, same blue sweater, but this time she wasn't alone. 3 children sat beside her. She opened a paper bag. Inside were only 5 sandwiches. There were 6 people. Without hesitation, she cut every sandwich into tiny pieces. She smiled. "Everybody gets something." The children laughed. One little boy asked, "Grandma Rose, what about yours?" She winked. "Oh, honey, I ate before you got here." Another lie. A beautiful, heartbreaking lie. After the children left, the pastor walked over. He smiled sadly. "You finally met Rose. She's been doing this for nearly 15 years. I stared at him. "Doing what?" He looked toward the empty plate. "Feeding everyone, even when she has nothing." I couldn't believe it. "How?" He sighed. "Every month, she gives away nearly all of her pension. Every single month. Sometimes she survives on crackers so strangers can eat real meals." I felt ashamed. Here I was, complaining about rising grocery prices, while this woman was quietly saving lives, one meal at a time. That afternoon, I offered to buy her lunch, a huge meal, anything she wanted. She smiled, then asked me one question. "Can we buy enough for 10 people instead?" My heart broke. The day everything changed. The following Saturday, I came back with 10 hot meals. Rose's eyes filled with tears, not because of the food, because someone had finally joined her mission. Together, we handed meals to strangers, veterans, single mothers, runaway teenagers, an old man who hadn't spoken to anyone in weeks. Rose remembered every name, every birthday, every favorite soup. She treated each person like family. As the last meal disappeared, I noticed she still hadn't eaten. I quietly handed her the final container. She smiled. Just then, a young mother appeared, carrying a little girl wrapped in a thin blanket. "I'm sorry," the mother whispered. "They told me I was too late. There isn't any food left." Without saying a word, Rose looked at the meal in her hands, then at the little girl. She kissed the container softly and placed it into the child's hands. "There you go, sweetheart." The little girl's eyes lit up brighter than Christmas morning. The mother burst into tears. She tried to give Rose a few dollars. Rose gently closed her fingers. "No," she whispered. "When life gets better, feed someone else." That night, I drove home and cried harder than I had in years, because I finally understood. Some people aren't remembered for what they owned. They're remembered for what they gave away. The letter in the old tin box. A week later, Rose didn't show up. Not on Monday, not on Tuesday, not even Wednesday. The little bench outside the church sat empty. For the first time, it looked lonely. I asked the pastor if he'd seen her. He lowered his head. "Rose's health hasn't been good. She's at home." He handed me a small address, written on the back of an old church bulletin. When I knocked, the door opened slowly. Rose smiled. "Oh, I was wondering when you'd come." Her tiny apartment was almost empty. One chair, one table, one narrow bed, and in the corner, an old tin box. She motioned for me to open it. Inside were dozens of letters. Some were written in shaky handwriting. Others were covered in crayon. One read, "Dear Grandma Rose, because you fed me when I was 10, I became a chef. Now I feed hundreds of people every week." Another, "You bought my first school lunch. Today I'm a teacher. Every Friday, I pay for a student's meal because of you." Then another, "You don't remember me, but I remember you. You saved my life." Rose looked at me with those gentle eyes. I never wanted anyone to repay me. I only hoped they'd pass kindness on. At that moment, I realized her greatest gift had never been the food. It was the example. The table that never stayed empty. The following Sunday, the church parking lot looked different. Cars kept arriving. Families stepped out, holding casseroles, fresh bread, fruit, soup, and warm desserts. The pastor smiled. "I didn't organize this." "You didn't?" He shook his head. "No, they organized it. People kept coming. A firefighter, a nurse, a delivery driver, a retired soldier, a college student. Then, one by one, they walked over to Rose. Some hugged her, some cried, some simply whispered, "Thank you." The little girl who had received the last meal ran into Rose's arms. Her mother smiled. "We have jobs now. We wanted to bring dinner. For everyone." By sunset, the long tables overflowed with food. No one asked who deserved to eat. No one counted portions. Strangers became neighbors. Neighbors became friends. And for the first time, I watched Rose sit down with a full plate. Before taking a bite, she looked around at every smiling face. Then she whispered, "I think this is enough." The legacy of an empty plate. Winter arrived quietly. A few weeks later, Rose passed away peacefully in her sleep. The church bell rang, not with sadness alone, but with gratitude. At her memorial, there were no expensive flowers, no grand speeches. Instead, people carried plates, empty plates, each one a reminder that kindness doesn't begin when you have plenty. It begins when you choose to share what little you have. The pastor placed Rose's old ceramic plate on a wooden table. beside her photograph. Underneath it, he placed a simple, handwritten note. Feed someone whenever you can. Months passed, then years. The bench outside the church was never empty again. Every Saturday, someone new arrived with food. Some came because they were hungry. Many came because they remembered Rose. Children who once stood in line returned as adults, bringing meals for families they had never met. The little girl with the blanket grew up to volunteer there every weekend. The young chef started a community kitchen. The teacher made sure no student in her classroom ever skipped lunch. One act of kindness had become hundreds, then thousands. As for me, I kept Rose's photograph on my desk whenever life felt unfair or I caught myself complaining. I looked at her gentle smile and remembered the woman who held an empty plate, yet somehow fed the world around her. Because real wealth isn't measured by what we keep, it's measured by what we give away. And maybe the people who leave the biggest mark on our lives aren't the loudest or the richest. Maybe they're the quiet souls who simply refuse to let another person go hungry. If this story stays with you, the next time you see someone in need, don't think about how little you have. Think about Rose, because sometimes the smallest act of kindness becomes someone else's reason to believe that the world is still full of good people. Thanks for attaching, subscribe, darker a story, goodbye.